Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Top 5. This is my top 5 movies of 2020. Let's get it started. Now, this is my top 5 movies that I enjoyed. It's been a crazy year for movies, obviously, with the pandemic. I'm sure there's a lot of movies that I haven't seen that I will probably eventually see that might have made the list if I had seen it in time, but I have not. So let's start off with number 5. It's a movie that came out earlier in the year. Some places say it came out in 2019, but I believe the U.S. release was early 2020, and that movie is The Gentleman. New movie written and directed by Guy Ritchie, the man who's been on a journey with his films. Started off with Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, followed it up with Snatch. Two of my, I don't know about my favorite movies. Definitely my favorite of his movies. Definitely really good movies, especially Snatch. Kind of getting that budget, getting different actors in there. Started off Jason Statham's career. I think he was in Lock, Stock. But then he kind of went. Not that I didn't like the Sherlock Holmes movies. I did like them, but it kind of took him down this path of doing worse and worse stuff. But The Gentleman, I feel, is a return to form. It's not as stylized as his movies had gotten, especially his Robin Hood. Wait, did he do not the Robin Hood one? He did the King and King Arthur's Court or whatever. Some King Arthur movie, I forget. I never watched it with Charlie Hunnam, who is in this movie also. But it's definitely a return to form. Doesn't have the stylized slow motion bits that he had kind of, I don't know if he was known for, but definitely was a staple in his movies. This is just a straight up kind of crime movie, weed movie. It's also a movie about a movie pitch. Literally, this movie is it's Hugh Grant kind of pitching this movie idea to Charlie Hunnam's character. So it's kind of got a lot of flashbacky moments, but not really. I mean, it's kind of, so they meet at this one point, the beginning of the movie, and then they kind of catch everybody up to their meeting, and then it kind of goes past that. But it's just a great movie, really fun movie. And like his early Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, it's really shows how good of a writer he is, where it's, multiple groups of people all kind of in the mix, having their own influence on the events that are happening, while Matthew McConaughey's character, who's an American who gets into selling weed over in the UK as a kid in college, and grew it into this giant business, which is a crazy hard thing to do in the UK, because growing weed is not an easy thing to do just geographically in the UK, because the island is so small. Everybody is allowed to go everywhere, and it kind of breaks down why it's so difficult, and it also breaks down how he's able to kind of make it all happen, how he's able to get all of these spaces to grow the weed. And it's just, from top to bottom, it's just like well crafted, well written, well acted, just a lot of fun to watch. It's going into this movie, I've been very, very hard on myself trying to avoid any kind of trailers. There was a handful of movies last year where movies I saw could have been a lot better if I hadn't seen the trailer, either the trailer spoiling the entire movie, or just the trailer spoils moments that would have been big moments in that movie if I hadn't already seen the trailer for it. Like the Terminator one, there was a bunch of moments that would have been badass to be originally revealed while watching the movie versus seeing them in the trailer, kind of getting thrown out there as, nostalgia kind of marketing, and then, they don't even land anymore because you already see, what's going to happen. So I've been avoiding trailers, tried to avoid as much as possible when it came to this one. I did know some of the people in it. I kind of knew, it was back in the UK. I remember seeing a pot leaf, so I knew there was some stuff in it, but didn't really know the story. Although I haven't gone back to see the trailers to see if it spoils anything, but uh, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going in. When the movie was over, I felt satisfied. The way it ends, there's some twists and turns. This movie starts off kind of trying to make you think that a certain character dies, but you find out the reality of that scene much later. And it's a movie that is a step ahead of the audience, I believe, in every way. And it's a fun ride to see the whole thing unfold. And it's it's the story about Matthew McConaughey's character, and he's got this giant weed business, and he's basically trying to sell it. He's trying to sell it to these billionaires out of Oklahoma. But there's other people involved that are trying to fuck up the shit. Just the fact that he's trying to sell and get out is in some ways a sign of weakness, and because of that weakness, it's a whole thing of trying to maintain your dominance in this area. And it's just from the standpoint of him trying to sell it, the people involved, like on his team. Charlie Hunnam plays like his personal assistant slash kind of muscle. Like he's kind of, I don't know if it was in a corporate setting, if he's like the COO or the CFO. I don't know what his title would necessarily be, being adapted to this criminal organization, but he's kind of the guy that gets things done. And it's great, man. He's great in it. What's his name? Hugh Grant is amazing in this movie, kind of just playing this. I don't know if he's an investigator or if he's a reporter, but he's that kind of character where he gathered all of this evidence up, right? And he's pitching this movie, this idea, this story, that all the information that he's gathered on what's going on. And he's showing Charlie Hunnam's character all that he knows, which Charlie Hunnam's character's name is Ray, by the way. It's kind of weird. My name is in a lot of movies recently, most notably Star Wars, which is disappointing, except for the second one. But yeah, so he's trying to like showing Ray all of the things that he has on him, on the organization, and how he's going to expose them if he doesn't pay them money. A little blackmail here, a little blackmail there. So it's great. It's great. Great role for Hugh Grant. Colin Farrell is in this. Plays like a boxing instructor who, like this, his character and then his students in the boxing academy or school or whatever, who are like hooligans, right? So he's like training these kids to be boxers, but then these boxer kids go out and commit crimes, film the whole thing, edit it down into like music videos. So they're trying to get popular, trying to get that internet popularity, internet fame, while pulling off these crimes, filming it, beating people up. And it's just like that kind of scene where you're introduced to these boxers, these kids, as they're trying to steal a bunch of weed from one of Matthew McConaughey's grow houses. Like, that was pretty much the most stylized part of the movie, and it also fit because it was it fit. I mean, it was basically the video that these kids edited. So of course it's going to be flashy and super stylized. So it really fit, and it didn't. Until right now, I didn't even realize that he actually did have those stylized moments in this movie. But they actually fit. It's not like in Sherlock Holmes, where he's in that fight scene and he's like slowing down and he's kind of going through all the things he's gonna do, and it's like all super slow mo, or even in Snatch, where Brad Pitt's character knocks that one dude out in the bare knuckle fight, and he flies back all in slow mo. Like, a lot of that stylized stuff that's in his previous movies is, I guess, also in this one, but done in a way where it fits the story and blends right in. There is a moment in the beginning of this movie where Hugh Grant's character, when he's starting the movie pitch, it does get a little stylized where he's like discussing the aspect ratio of how this film is going to be. It's like, no, it needs to be in anamorphic widescreen. It can't be in 4:3. It's not made for TV. This is made for the big screen. But yeah, great film. Go watch The Gentleman. Probably my favorite movie of the year so far. I mean, it's still January, so we got a lot of year to go. But I really enjoyed The Gentleman. Great movie. Hopefully, it's cleaning up in the box offices. But yeah, go watch it. Guy Ritchie back on top. I love this kind of movie. I would love to see him do more of. Because I think it fits his style. Fits everything about him, and I really enjoyed it. My number 4 movie is The King of Staten Island, new movie out in video on demand. It's kind of in this new time, new era of existence. Movies that would normally have been released in a movie theater are now being released on video on demand, where you can rent them for usually around $20. Bit pricey, but this movie is, I would have to say, my favorite movie of the year so far. Now, there hasn't been a lot of movies to choose from, but this movie, I mean, just overall, this movie is one of my favorite movies, just period. Just one of my favorite movies, period, end of sentence. Great movie starring Bill Burr, Pete Davidson, of course. God, what's her name? I should have had this up. Why am I blanking on her name? This is so amazing. Here we are. We have Marisa Tomei. Of course, I think of it before I see it, but yeah, great acting. Of course, directed by Judd Apatow, written by Pete Davidson. I think he may have, it's like semi-autobiographical from what I've heard, which I enjoy Pete Davidson. I mean, funny, hilarious comedian. And the movie that he did on Hulu, Big Time Adolescence, very similar type of character to this character in King of Staten Island. But I enjoy this movie far more. Big Time Adolescence, kind of tough to watch. It's more about a young kid being influenced by older shitheads. Where this one, it's like, it's a grounded comedy. I wouldn't say comedy. It's very just a grounded movie. Very like just a grounded like drama, but with comedic moments. I mean, it's a movie. It's an Apatow type of feel where all the interactions feel very natural. All the acting, all the actors feel very natural. Yeah, it's great. Bill Burr is great playing a fireman who's going out with Pete Davidson's mom, who is Marisa Tomei, and his dad, Pete Davidson's dad in this movie, was a firefighter also and died on the job when he was 7, and like kind of the whole family kind of just hit pause and just stopped kind of living. Like his mom just kind of never dated anybody or anything, and it's just like, and Pete Davidson's character is, I mean, the movie opens with him driving on the freeway and just closing his eyes as he drives, and just like clearly in a suicidal, depressive state. And it's kind of a big punch to start the movie, but just so great. It's like all of his friends are like trash people, but there's so much heart in this movie. Like, they're not like assholes. They're just trying to do what they can do to survive in Staten Island, which is kind of a trash place. At least, I've never been there, but that's from what this movie is showing and telling. But yeah, it's just a great ride of a movie too. Kind of long, little over 2 hours, but well worth it. Like the beginning, setting up the friendships and the relationships between what's Pete Davidson's character's name? Scott. Like him, his relationship with his friends, and his just inability to have an emotional relationship with a woman. Just everything, like the world that you're in. I mean, it's not like a fantasy world, but it's like everything is built up so well in the beginning of the movie. How Bill Burr's character comes in as the dad of a kid that Pete Davidson was going to give a tattoo to, which Pete Davidson's character Scott is like he's an aspiring tattoo artist, and he has, I mean, himself, Pete Davidson is covered in tattoos, kind of shitty tattoos. It's kind of trendy, I think, to have shitty tattoos, kind of similar to Diane Word, that hip hop group from South Africa. That they have a lot of kind of just really basic kind of shitty tattoos. So an interesting kind of trend. But he plays, his character wants to be a tattoo artist, so of course gives all of his friends tattoos, and they're all bad. They're all so bad, and they all know it, but they want to be there for him. So they're out on the beach, and this like kid comes up who's like 7 or 10 or I don't know, young kid. And he's like trying to be a badass. He's like, yeah, I want to get a tattoo. And as soon as it starts, he leaves. And it turns out that was Bill Burr's kid. So tracks him down and goes to confront him. And that's where Bill Burr meets Marisa Tomei, his mom. And they kind of like, they don't hit it off because he's pissed. He wants to kill Scott. But I don't know. It's just so much of this movie. It's a crazy ride. You get to see Pete Davidson and Bill Burr, their kind of bond of, Pete Davidson's this kid that lost his dad and just hadn't had any direction, hadn't had any kind of male role models. And it's them, due to circumstances where they're both enemies of each other, it ends up making everything worse for everybody. So you see them have to kind of repair that in a way where Pete Davidson goes to live in the firehouse because he gets kicked out of his house. Just so much of this movie is amazing. It's a movie about getting your shit together. I mean, when you're in that kind of early 20s of your life and you're still living at home still, and you want to do something, but you're not really pulling the trigger on anything. His sister just went off. His younger sister goes off to college and is kind of taking the next step in her life, where Pete Davidson's character is still home at home with his mom, and so the movie is very much it's heart, it's pain, because they're dealing with the loss of the dad. Just so much of this movie, so good, so heartwarming. I loved it so much. I can't wait to watch it again. I can't wait to see. I mean, just Judd Apatow. Amazing. His style of having people improv to get like really realistic and grounded kind of performances is so great. Every aspect of this movie is so amazing. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see fucking Bill Burr. Amazing. I would love to see Bill Burr in more movies, and Pete Davidson just effortlessly great in this movie, even though his character is really not that different from his character in Big Time Adolescence. Still great. I can't wait to see what both of them, hopefully they get more acting roles and do more of that. But yeah, King of Staten Island, if you're looking for a good movie to rent, like a seriously good movie, like I don't know if it'll get nominated. It could easily be nominated, but we're not even in the nomination time of the year. I think especially studios trying to hold back to release some of their big tentpole movies that didn't get released during the summer because of the pandemic. So it's an interesting time, but so far my favorite movie of the year, The King of Staten Island, the end of the movie is amazing. But every aspect, I mean, even though it's a long movie, like I enjoyed every moment of this movie, and I couldn't find a single aspect of this movie that I didn't like. or that took away from it. It was all perfect, and I can't wait. I can't wait for more people to see it, and it to get on like a streaming service like Netflix. I don't know how long that'll take. It'll probably be a few months, but yeah, it's if you have $20 to spend on it, or maybe somebody with a hacked Fire Stick or something like that. I don't know. There's ways. There's ways you can watch it, and if you have the means of any of those ways, then go check it out. It is so good, so good. A lot of heart. My number 3 movie of the year is The Devil All the Time. New movie out on Netflix, directed and written by Antonio Campos, director that I had only seen one of his movies before seeing this one. And the only reason I watched this was because one of my favorite podcasts, the Slash Filmcast, is going to review it. So I figured if it's good enough for them to review, it must be a good movie. Has a great cast. Robert Pattinson's in it. Tom Holland is one of the leads. Bill Skarsgård. Just a lot of great acting in general. Really great writing as well. Very the movie itself, probably one of the best examples of storytelling in a movie. Just the way it sets up all the different characters, how all the characters' storylines are intertwined with each other. Even the voiceover really helps with this movie because there's a lot going on. It's set in like the 50s and 60s in the Midwest, 2 towns between Ohio and I think Kentucky. And it really is a movie, just a painful story. Just it beats you down, but it's so well told that even though something horrible is right around the corner, because the title itself, "Devil All the Time," is kind of a clue to what you're in for when you go to watch this movie, because it seems like one bad thing happens after another, and I'm not talking like mildly disappointing bad things. It's just like horrific things happen one after the other. And the horrific things are there to set up these characters and how everything plays off each other. Just amazing. It reminded me a lot of Fargo, also Magnolia, kind of having these big casts with a lot of characters and all their stories are intertwined. Very good. I actually went on a binge of Antonio Campos's movies, at least 2 of the earlier films that he's done, After School and Simon Killer, after watching this. And this is definitely, I would say, his penultimate, his masterpiece. I have no idea how this movie was received, but as far as I'm concerned, probably my favorite movie of the year so far. Probably one of my favorite movies that's ever been made. Just the level of acting, the level of writing, the level of storytelling. It was all there on screen. It was all there on screen. Nothing that is set up isn't paid off. Everything shown is meant to be seen, and then to later give you the information later on when crazy things happen, because crazy things do happen. And it's not like supernatural crazy. It's just like the depths of humanity, and how not only how evil humans can be, the potential for evil that humans have, but also what you could get away with in that time in those areas, because they're all like rural areas. They're not big cities. Even now, they're not big cities, these areas. And then especially back then, they had phones, but, and the cops had radios, but there was you could literally get away with murder, if you just left after doing it. Like it's not that hard. It wasn't that hard back then to get away with murder, and not just regular murder. You get away with like crazy fucking murder. But yeah, just tons of interesting, extremely damaged people, And you see, like, when it sets up the characters, you're kind of you start way back where you like Tom Holland is the main lead in this, but it takes a while for him to show up because it's showing like the history of his dad. Not the history, but it shows like some traumatic things that happened to his dad during war. And then after war, then things happen with his mom, then things happen with his dog, then things happen with his dad, and then he ends up at this place. And then there's another person that ends up at that same place, and then they show the backstory of how that person got there. Just so well told. Really, it hurt to watch this movie. It really felt bad in my soul to watch this movie, but in the end, it was just so good. The end of the movie, it doesn't leave you disappointed. Let's put it that way. Like the end of the movie, it wraps up everything. It's almost the best kind of conclusion you can have for a movie that's so dark and disturbing. But yeah, just amazing acting in this too. And if you look at like the previous films of Antonio Campos, very minimal, very like single shots, single focus. Like people are either out of focus or walk into focus in certain shots. Just very minimal all around. Very much like kind of a stereotypical like indie drama in a lot of ways. But he has also like a source of like mystery to his things because you like don't necessarily always know because you're introduced to new facts throughout the movie. So it's after seeing this movie and just being blown away, just being torn up emotionally, but also blown away at just how amazing the storytelling is. Going back to kind of see where he started and see the movies that he did before this was kind of a good kind of I don't know what you'd say, like kind of a extra kind of, it really filled you into the type of stories and the type of way Antonio Campos likes to tell his stories. It seems like, I mean, the problem with being minimal in your storytelling, not that this movie is minimal. This one, there's a lot going on. This one's almost like 5 of his movies all wrapped into one, because a lot of the other movies are basically just following a single character. Where this one, you're seeing the story not told through different characters, but you drift around and you follow different characters and you see what they get into. And it's just such a good movie. The devil all the time. I mean, and the movie is basically surviving life surrounded by evil, right? You're just fighting the devil all the time. That's actually where that's a line in the movie. Fighting the devil all the time is something that Tom Holland's dad says. And he had a tough life, just before even the events of this movie, like just being in war. There's one scene while he was in war where he came across him and like a few of his I don't know what they're called, army mates, come across this like open area that's just been destroyed, like burnt down, like napalm to shit, and just everything horrible. And one of his fellow soldiers was burnt on a cross, crucified, and was just charred up. But when he got close, the corpse on the cross took a big gasp. And it's just a haunting scene. And he doesn't, like he does, he shows you just enough to know what's happening. It's not like gratuitous in any way. Again, I think it comes from his minimalist style from these previous films, where it's like when you strip everything away and you tell a story using the least amount of words, and showing scenes in the most simple way, like very few cuts, a lot of long scenes, where he allows his actors to kind of act within the scene and have long dialogues, and not even long dialogues, just allow for a lot of silence. Just really more just natural, realistic kind of ways of speaking, um, which I really enjoyed. Really good movie. Highly recommend it. Probably my favorite movie of the year. The best movie of the year. It's not like a movie where it makes you feel good to watch it. Although I did put it on a second time, just kind of on in the background. Because it is one of those movies where even if it's on in the background, you can look up and there's just an amazing scene you're gonna watch. Um, I don't know. Just it's so good. It hurts. It's painful. You may cry. It didn't necessarily get me emotional, but it definitely made me stressed out. Gave me a lot of anxiety and a lot of like. It really actually made me feel good for like the life that I'm going through, where the trials and tribulations of my day to day are nowhere near comparable to what happens in this movie. So I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. Check it out on Netflix right now. So my number 2 movie of 2020 is Sound of Metal. New movie out on Amazon Prime starring Riz Ahmed. Probably one of the best performances I've seen. If he wins Best Actor, I would be very happy. I think it would be a very well-deserved award, as well as an award for sound design. This is a movie. It was recommended through many movie podcasts that the sound is a very important aspect of this film, and was recommended to, if not a premium sound system, wear headphones. So I wore headphones while watching this to make sure I got the full experience of the sound design, which I think is probably the second lead in this movie. You got Riz Ahmed and the sound designer working hand on hand to tell this story of a drummer who starts to lose his hearing and has to grapple with a very important time in his life where it changes, a big change happening in his life, and his unwillingness to accept the change, the accept the what's going on, instead trying to fix the problem, trying to go back to a time where he had hearing, instead of learning to cope with this new way of existing. Um, so sound design is very well done in this movie. There's the opening of this movie, aside from the concert that they're playing, the show that they're playing. There's a scene of him waking up. It's him and his girlfriend, very much like a White Stripes type of situation, where it's a guy and a girl in a band, 2-person band, heavy metal band. He's the drummer, she's the vocalist and guitar. But one morning, waking up after a show in their RV that they're on tour. They're on tour in this RV, waking up, and just kind of the sounds of the morning, like the clicks and the drip of the coffee maker, and the just the subtle sounds that somebody might hear waking up in the morning. And there's a contrasting scene where those sounds no longer exist. This movie really puts the viewer, the audience, shows them different perspectives. You get to be put in the perspective of what it sounds like to have 24 to 28% of your hearing. You get to hear what is actually going on. You get to hear the full range of sound. And then you also get to hear nothingness. And you also get to hear a version of sound when he ultimately achieves his goal of trying to fix this problem, or what he feels is a fix for the problem. In that the goal is for him to get these ocular implants, so he can hear again, so he can go back on tour, and that's like his main drive. But when he loses his hearing, he's an addict. So he's like, first off, Riz Ahmed, amazing performance. he embodies this drummer. He embodies this guy that's had a hard life, doesn't have the kind of support structure that a normal person might have. He's very much on his own with his girlfriend, recovering addict. But he has all of the mannerisms, the attitude, the just amazing performance by Riz Ahmed playing this guy. So it's him losing his hearing and wanting to fix it, and he ends up going to a camp kind of a thing where it's other people who are deaf, who are addicts, who get together. It's like I don't know, like a community of people where he goes and he learns how to speak in sign language. He starts taking the steps to understand how to live life with this new way of being, with the lack of sound, and he learns the tools. So the movie, I mean, it's horrifying. There's like so many ranges of emotion in this movie. It's the horrifying notion that your identity of being this musician, of being a drummer, is taken away from you, right? And you're seeing it through his eyes, and you're seeing the terror that he's facing. And you can understand why, with that terror, you want to do everything to try and fix this thing. But the reality of the situation is that it's not something that can be fixed. But he's unwilling to see that reality. He's unwilling to see the reality. He's unwilling to let go of his past life, and it's his drive to, quote unquote, fix this problem, which he learns through these people that he's in this community, that people who are deaf don't feel it's a problem that needs to be fixed. So they're against getting these ocular implants. They're just all about living their best life without the use of sound, with just one less thing in their life, but they they still are living fulfilled, happy lives without this sense. But he's like so ingrained in the notion that it needs to be fixed that he ends up. There's this scene where he's sitting down with the leader of this community, and a great character. I think his name is Joe, and it comes to a head because he gets the ocular implants. Like he schemes. He ends up selling off all of his musical equipment in the RV to be able to afford these implants. And there's this thing where he's like, "You're like an addict, man. You're like trying to bargain your way out of dealing with a thing instead of accepting the new reality that you're living in," which is just heartbreaking as well. It's just, I mean, this movie has all kinds of different emotions: terror, the joy that he gets when he starts to learn. Like, there's a scene where he's racing another kid on doing the alphabet with sign language, which is like, there's this joy that you get, like, that he's getting it, that he's understanding, and that he's able to communicate. He's going in two directions at the same time, right? He's understanding how his new reality is going to be, but also still stuck trying to reclaim the past to get this thing. He's still like under the idea that it's something that needs to be fixed. And it's just, I don't know, it's an amazing. There's a scene also that's just beautiful scene where he goes back to the RV that he was in tour with, and he sets up his drums inside the RV as almost a goodbye. It's like him saying goodbye in a way to all this stuff, which he's like selling all this stuff to be able to get these implants so that he can go back on tour somehow. But it's this scene where he's setting up the drums, and he's just playing. It's from his perspective audibly, so you can only hear like these muffled beats of the drum, and then it's this far shot, far away from the RV, looking at the RV during like sunset, and you get to hear just the him going on this drum solo inside the RV, which he can barely hear, but if you're standing outside, it's just like this beautiful scene. But yeah, it's just A great movie, probably one of my best movies of the year. I mean, you got his performance, Riz Ahmed's performance. You got this amazing storytelling with Darius Martyr, this simple story, and then just this amazing sound design that really adds. I mean, it's a character in itself, because you're seeing the perspective of all these things, and then he finally gets these implants, right? He sells everything he has to get these implants, and it's like it's this sinking feeling when you realize that the thing that you were pursuing, the thing that you gave up everything, because you felt in your heart, it felt like that was the answer to your problem, that was the thing that's going to fix everything and make everything go back to normal. It's a sinking feeling where you realize that you were wrong, that everybody else was right, and that you instead of purging everything to try and accomplish this goal, to get these things, to try and live in the past, that you had already started putting a pathway towards your future. It's like heartbreaking, and it's like he gets his sound back, but it's a very shitty sound. I mean, the title of the movie is perfect to describe what it's like, which I don't know how accurate the sound is for when he's hearing through those ocular implants, but it sounds just like there's this metallic, distorted, like really tinny, horrible, tiny speaker type of sound. Like if you were trying to play like heavy metal through like a shitty computer speaker from like the early 90s, like a shitty computer speaker from the 90s that can't handle like the type of sound you're trying to push through it. And then the very end of the movie, where he takes the implants off, and it's just complete silence, because with the implants it was like nothing but noise. It was like this most like annoying, like irritating, metallic, just constant noise and distortion that he was existing in once he got these implants. And once he takes them off, he's like sitting on a bench and he takes them off, and it's just like this peace. It really feels like that's the moment where he understands what Joe was talking about when he told him to go into that room and just sit and write. It's about trying to be okay with where you're at in the moment. Stop trying to look towards the past. Don't focus on the future. Be present in the moment. Find peace in the moment, and find peace in the stillness of the silence. And there's that silence that this movie ends with that I think was like the most beautiful way to end the movie, because it's like so much about sound in this, and how different things sound, and how the lack of sound versus having sound versus this new like augmented sound, when you strip that all away, how just ultimately peaceful life can be. And I thought it was a very beautiful movie, very beautiful end, and I hope that a lot of awards go the way of this movie. Sound of Metal, check it out, Amazon Prime. But my number one movie of 2020, this is a movie that I enjoyed watching. I've watched multiple times. It's a movie that I relate to because of things I've already mentioned. But my number one movie of 2020 is The 40-Year-Old Version. New independent movie out on Netflix. Movie that kind of looked interesting. Had that black and white feel to it. Looking forward to it. One of the things I love about movies, when I used to collect DVDs, I would blind buy a lot of movies just based on having those little wreaths on the front, where it's like, oh, they won this award from this independent film festival that got grand jury prize and Cannes or whatever. And I discovered a lot of fun movies that way. A lot of great independent movies out there that people will never see because they're just independent and they just hit the film festival circuit, and they maybe never get distribution, and they just kind of die in obscurity. But this one
He's not dead. It is very much alive. It is very much my favorite movie of the year. Written, directed, starring Rada Blank. Just an amazing film. As an artist, it's something that really resonated with me. The look and feel of the movie is amazing. It really has like a Spike Lee aesthetic to it, but I've reviewed a couple Spike Lee films on this show before. I am not the biggest Spike Lee fan. I respect his voice and his style. The man just has a lot of anger, which is completely understandable, but a little bit too much anger for me in most of his films. However, this one, despite having the look and feel of a Spike Lee movie, which I feel like this one was probably influenced a lot by his work, this one's far less anger, far more comedy. It's not a straight-up comedy film, but there's a lot of comedy in this movie. It's about Rada, who is a 40-year-old playwright who got big in her 30s. She won a 30 under 30 award, and now she's approaching 40s, and she's trying to evolve. She's trying to change. She's trying to kind of step out of the comfort zone of what she's been doing and what she's been known for. It's kind of a thing that a lot of artists, not a lot of artists, but there's definitely artists that kind of break too early, or they get a lot of attention early on in their career, and it's usually a bad mixture. Generally, people that get famous too early and they still haven't found their voice, maybe, or there's a lot of things. They just don't have the experience. They don't have the confidence to create that they would if they had been doing it and developing art and understanding what it takes to develop ideas over and over again. The kind of repetition and experience that you gain from being able to do that, and confidence you gain from doing that. So a lot of the times when artists break too early, you see a lot of flash in the pan, one-hit wonders come out of that. And not to say that she is that, but she's definitely kind of hit a slump. It's like, just resting on her laurels from this play that she wrote when she was, a decade ago, which I love. I love the idea of artists evolving. Taking risks is a very important part of the creative process, especially if you want to evolve, constantly trying to challenge yourself with what you're doing and how you're doing it and what you're trying to say, which this movie is about that. It's about creating real, authentic art, right? Because when you're, as an artist, when you decide to take risks, when you decide to do a thing that you haven't done before, when you put yourself out there in a new way, it's very rare that you're going to have people support you, because they don't understand what it is to be an artist. They don't understand what it is to really push yourself and to try and grow and to try and change and try and evolve. So it's a very lonely place to be a lot of times when you're setting out to do something new. So as an artist, you have to have ultimate faith in your abilities, ultimate faith in yourself, that the idea that you want to develop, grow, is something worthwhile, is something that's worth your time and energy, because it takes time to develop an idea. It's not like, just because, you get early success, easy success in one thing doesn't mean that everything you do is going to attract that same kind of attention. Some things take a lot longer to cook before they're done. And so I love that this movie is so much about just creating real work independently, despite people. I mean, there's not a lot of people who are playwrights getting into hip hop, because that's what she wants to do. She's this playwright, and she when she was a kid, she used to write rhymes. She used to do a lot of rapping as a kid, and it's something that she wants to bring back. It's like this true, authentic voice that she had when she was a kid, which most children have the most authentic voice because they don't have these preconceived notions of what an artist should be or what they should be doing. They understand there's no rules in art. There are no rules, and they're not like worried about what people are going to think about the work that they do. So she tries to tap in to that old voice of hers, that thing that she used to love as a kid, creatively, and trying to bring that back. But as somebody who's older, it's like it's even tougher for somebody who's older to really change and break out and try something new, right? Like Garth Brooks did it, maybe not successfully when he tried to be whatever the emo rock Ed Gaines or whatever. I forget what his fake persona was, but it's possible. It's hard. It's not easy, and it's a completely different world. Her creating hip hop versus working in the like theater business. It's a completely different world where producing a play, she has to go through a producer who's got notes for her. She has to go through a director. There's actors involved. There's so many visions involved, so many hands working on a single thing, that it's not as pure of an expression as if you were to be a hip hop artist, where maybe you have somebody making beats for you, but all of your thoughts and ideas are singularly viewed and inputted into the work itself. Same thing with comedy. Comedy is a very similar thing, even more so than hip hop, because there's nobody making beats. It's just you up on a stage with a microphone. So I appreciate that. I mean, those are two things that are very similar in like a fine art world, where there's nobody giving me notes. There's nobody telling me what to do when I decide to sit down and paint something or draw something or design something on Photoshop or edit a video. There's no rules. I can model things that I do after other people and gain ideas from things that I've seen other people kind of try and experiment with. But it's completely not. It's like it's the difference in eating like raw whole foods versus processed foods. Like the old play, the old Broadway, the old like theatrical kind of factory of making art that she's kind of in a lot of ways beat her down over the years, because it's just like you have to overcome so many hurdles for something to get made, and once it is made, it's generally not what you intended 100%. It's been influenced over the time of its creation. So being able to really get in there and just do something raw and real and organic that's just 100% you is a completely different thing. So in addition to the comedy I loved in this movie, I love the music. The hip hop moments are authentically done. I thought there's parts where her DJ that makes the beats takes her to a rap battle that's in like this factory where it's like a boxing gym, and it's like in a boxing ring, which I thought was good. And even the battle, like everything felt authentic. It didn't feel like a movie hired, like the writer of the movie like made up raps for the movie. It's like people that actually do hip hop and do rap battles actually doing their thing. It felt very authentic, very real. I really enjoyed the movie. Probably my favorite movie of the year, the 40-year-old version. Not a big fan of the title, although it does pay off at the end of the movie. But yeah, just way too easily confused with the other movie, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which is also a classic comedic film, but this one is very much more, has a lot more meat to it, has a lot more heart to it. I mean, than just a standard comedy. It's really trying to tell a story about a woman who's comes from an artistic family too. But through having an artistic family, her mom was an artist, and seeing how her mom evolved and changed and did different things throughout her life, I'm sure is also a big inspiration of what led her to have the confidence to try something new with hip hop. I really loved it. I really love the movie. I highly recommend you check it out. The black and white decision to not have color. There are moments of color in the movie, which I enjoy. The very end of the movie, it switches to color. It's a nighttime scene, and they're walking away from the camera, so you don't get to see a lot of color. But I appreciate the look and feel. It really helps strip away a lot of distraction, getting rid of the colors in the film, and just filming in black and white. But I really loved it. Go check it out. The 40-year-old version. So those are my top 5 movies of 2020. Let me run down my top 5 one more time. If you're looking to check out what I find to be the greatest achievements in cinema, in my opinion. Not really, but they're just movies that I really enjoyed for a lot of different reasons. Number 5, The Gentleman by Guy Ritchie. Number 4, King of Staten Island by Judd Apatow, written by Pete Davidson. Number 3, The Devil All the Time by Antonio Campos. Number 2, Sound of Metal by Darius Martyr. And number 1, 40-year-old version by Rada Blank. Check all those movies out. 40-year-old versions, Netflix. Sound of Metal on Amazon Prime. Devil All the Time, Netflix. King of Staten Island, I don't think is streaming anywhere, or The Gentleman. But check him out if you get a chance. I enjoyed him. But those are my top 5 movies of 2020. Make sure you support our sponsor, Station House Coffee, on Instagram and stationhousecoffee.com. Order yourself some amazing coffee, single origin, premium, small batch coffee, brewed in Thetford Center, Vermont, and shipped directly to you. Go to stationhousecoffee.com and order your coffee today, and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com, and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!